Alrighty, diving into the Dominaria United blue section for Pauper. Joined again by Josh, otherwise known as Mayo on the internet. Starting off strong with Academy Wall, which is honestly one of the strongest cards I think in blue in this set, and there are a couple. 3 mana, 0/5 wall with defender, 2 colorless, and a blue. It says whenever you cast an instant or sorcery spell, you may draw a card. If you do, discard a card. This ability triggers only once each turn. Noticeably, you can trigger this on your turn and your opponent's turn, and I love that this is a 0/5 for 3. This card seems really, really good. What are your thoughts?
Yeah. I don't know what deck this goes in, but this is a very strong replacement, I want to say, for like a Wall of Omens or even like a secondary one of those. Is this is just gonna constantly draw you cards. Sure, it's looting, but it's gonna do everything a spells deck wants to do in drawing cards and not taking damage to life.
Yeah, I'm
So
definitely inclined to agree here. I think that this card is phenomenal. I think it's going to be a powerhouse in limited. I mean, you're not playing very many instants or sorceries, and the ones you do, just slapping loot on them makes them just a little bit better. Um,
mhm.
Construct. I don't know if this is going to make it in the Pauper Cube. I would like to say this makes it in the Pauper Cube. I'm not 100%. Constructed. This isn't going to make it in the walls deck because it's not strong enough to be in the combo, but I don't know. I see a lot of value in this card. I think it's good enough in like a lot of the tempo oriented decks because there's a lot of instants and sorceries in Pauper, right? I love that this dodges Bolt. I like that this dodges Blast. I mean, there's a ton going for this card, and it's good enough, and it's a repeatable effect that it's got to be good enough to find a home somewhere, you know?
Yeah, I agree. 5 is by far the most attractive number on this card.
Yeah, and I don't know. I like that it's a 3 drop, which means it comes down fast enough to deal with some of the aggressive, bullying decks in the format right now. Some of the blitz decks it can get in the way of. Um, there's not a whole lot this card's afraid of, and I'm really on board with it. Maybe one of the mono blue or the blue X tempo decks finds a use for this. I mean, maybe in like the blue black Fey deck, instead of like I see a lot of people running this over like what's it called? The 3 drop Seagate Oracle. I think
Yeah.
this could be at home in a lot of decks that run Seagate Oracle, and you can just run this instead of Seagate Oracle and staple loot onto every spell after it, and this is going to last a lot. I know it's not immediately cashing itself in to replace a card, which is important in some of those decks, but in other decks that are just looking for kind of a 3 drop that is a creature and comes with some advantage in card selection, I think this is definitely a strong contender for that slot.
Mhm. Yeah, I want to say that Reanimator could probably use this as well.
Yeah, maybe. Being able to feel your
Um,
discard is not a bad option.
mhm.
All right, closing thoughts? Anything else?
No. Excellent card. 5 out of 7. We'll play it again.
5 out of 7. All right, moving on. What do we got next? We got Haunting Figment. New 2 drop creature illustration. It's a 2/1, or illustration, illusion. It's a 2/1. Colorless and a blue, says it is a vigilance creature and it can't be blocked as long as you've cast an instant or sorcery spell this turn. I think this card is going to wear equipment very well. um,
Mhm.
I don't know that it has a home in the cube. I don't know that it has a home in constructed, but limited is going to love this card. This card's going to put a lot of pressure on people very quickly.
Mhm.
I think that if there ends up being like a mono blue tempo oriented deck that's running like unstable mutations or something like that, like a blue pump, this card's going to be gross.
Yeah. Yeah, this card needs a bigger butt, and equipment does that very well. And that's just to capitalize on vigilance. Otherwise, it's flavored text.
Yeah, exactly.
The unblockable portion is what's important
Yeah.
here. But I mean, it's a bear in blue, has 2 power. It's a Stormcrow with more words.
Yeah. Stormcrow with more words. Fair enough. Um, yeah, not much to say about this card. I think the art's kind of cool. Great flavor text, but yeah, I think this will probably end up in a lot of bulk bins. This will see some play in limited, but I think that's about as far as it's gonna go.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
If
I
it had
agree.
flying instead of vigilance, this card is really good.
I don't know if that matters so much. Just in the turns where you don't have an instant or sorcery to guess.
Yeah, I
It
think
just
that
seems
if
like
this had
redundant.
like sometimes evasion and then all the times evasion instead of sometimes evasion and sometimes a blocking traitor, I don't know. Maybe that's just my opinion. I think making this a little more aggressive would benefit it, but I agree. I think vigilance is flavor text most of the time on this card.
Hmm.
All right, let's move right along. Impede momentum. Next big notable card, I think, um, is the next card with stun counters. 2 mana sorcery from blue says a blue and a colorless tap target creature, put 3 stun counters on it. Scry 1 in case tapping with 3 stun counters wasn't quite enough on rate for a 2 mana sorcery. Um, can I just say if this card was an instant, it would be insane.
Mm-hmm.
This card really triggers memories of delay for me. And I think that delay taught us all just how long 3 turns really is in a game of Magic. 3 turns is an eternity.
Oh yeah.
I think this card's going to be really good. I don't think it's going to be in constructed. I just don't think this is enough for constructed. Even if there is like a proliferate deck that's trying to stun people out, I don't think this makes that cut. I think you need to target more than 1 creature on average. And I like that Stall for Time does target 2 creatures. I think that's super important. But I don't know. This card scries. It's pretty good. It costs 2. I don't like that it's a sorcery. But 3 turns is an eternity. So hard to rate this card, I think. I would not be surprised if this card is a limited bonkers removal spell.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so this card, like you said, sorcery really does take the fun away from this card. In blue, you don't really want to tap out like that. 3 turns is usually enough to make a creature um, uh, inconsequential. Like if you do this on their 2-drop or their 3-drop, by the time it's turn 5 or 6, then like you don't even care about that creature anymore.
Yeah.
Scry 1 helps a little bit. Again, if it had like a draw, could help, but Stall for Time is just a better version of this, I think.
So if this
Um,
said instant, are you on board with it being insane?
I'm leaning more towards them pushing power level at that point. Where if it was a sorcery and it drew a card still, or even if it had 2 stun counters, draw a card,
If it said draw a
just to keep
card,
the power budget.
this almost certainly has
Mhm.
to cost 3. Do you still like it at 3 if it draws a card?
Yeah.
I think I
If it,
agree with that. I think I'm on
mhm,
board if this is a 3 mana spell but draws a card instead of scry.
mhm.
I still like this at 2 with
Yeah.
scry. I agree. I think it would be better with draw, but I think
Yeah, but I mean
2 mana.
it's blue removal. It's
Yeah,
very useful for getting you out of the early game. It does notably tap you out if you go in early, but even on turn 4, this is still a solid card. Um, it's I think it's the second best stun counter card in this set.
yeah, that's fair. What do you think's the first?
Oh, Stall for Time.
Stall for Time. Yeah, fair enough.
It is just
Yeah,
insane.
I think Stall for Time
It's
is
so
quite good.
a Stall for Time is literally everything about Impede Momentum that I like, but better.
Fair enough.
It,
I like that this card
Mhm,
puts 3 counters instead of just 1 on each, but I agree. I think that Stall for
mhm.
Time is almost certainly better.
Yeah, but as the instant portion of Stall for Time, it really it's kind of like two stun counters.
Yeah, yeah, that's
Uh,
fair.
in but yeah, it really bridges the gap very well.
All right, now we're going
With
to look at a functional reprint of a card that is already in
oh,
Pauper and is already bad.
I
So I have
love
very
that
low
card though.
expectations for this card.
It's such a pet card for me.
Phyrexian Espionage, 3 mana sorcery, 2 and a blue, with kicker for 1 and a black. So total of 5 mana if you want to kick it. Draw 2 cards. If it was kicked, each opponent discards a card. Um, I'll be honest. I mean, this card is basically probe, right? Like,
Yeah.
I mean,
Mhm.
it's better probe, but it's probe, and it's
I got thoughts on that.
that's fair. I suppose it could it could be worse probe depending on if the kicker is important to you. Um, I still think I have yet to see a kicker card in this set that I did not think was overcosted for its ability. I think that at best this card should cost 4 mana. Um, I would like to see the. I think this is probably as close to a regular casting cost that I agree with as we've gotten, though. I think this should be a 3 mana sorcery, but I think it should be a 1 mana kicker. We have
Mhm.
consistently seen each opponent discards a card at 1 black on other cards. There's no reason that effect should cost 2 here. Only reason I think that should cost 2 mana is if you get to pick their card they're discarding, or if it's a random card.
Mm, that's fair.
But as it goes,
I,
I think that this card will be played as a divination 99.8% of the time. Um, and divination's good and limited, so it will probably see some love there. I don't think this makes the cut in constructed. I certainly don't think this makes the card in cube. Um, in a format that already has probe, do you really see this seeing more play than probe? A probe
no, I
doesn't see
don't.
any play at all
Unless
now.
mhm. Unless you're going for the divination, like you said. But probe digs deeper by one card. You keep one less, but the kicker is that each opponent discards two, or the target opponent
Yeah.
discards two. So it just shifts from you keeping an extra card to them losing an extra card. So it's still overall the same
Mm-hmm.
in terms of resources, but I like probe because it does dig deeper and it can put things into a relevant zone like the
Yeah.
graveyard. I agree it's not good. It's not worth it. There's other cards that do things better. Um, if you're looking for divination and you're playing blue and black and you expect the game to go long, sure. Phyrexian Espionage is your card, but I mean,
How many
eh.
times out of 100 do you think this is ever going to get cast with kicker? Like
Oh,
realistically,
geez.
how often do you think this is a
Realist
divination?
Oh, it's a donation almost like 80% of the time.
80%. Wow, you think 20% of people are going to kick this? I don't think there's a chance in hell
Mhm.
20% of the people kick this.
I think in any deck that wants this, you're gonna be blue control. And at that point in time, you know,
I
sure,
think that I
opponents
will play
discarding a card's
this
gonna
in
be
a
good for
lot
you.
of blue decks that doesn't have black in it, and I will play it as a straight up divination and limited. And
Limited,
I
sure.
don't think this will
Yes.
get put into many blue black decks. I think this is just
Mhm.
divination with flavor text. But we'll see. I suppose I could be
Mhm.
wrong. Again, I've said it consistently. I think a lot of the cards in this set are overcosted, and I think that is Wizards kind of heavy-handedly slowing the format down for this limited rotation. Um, Maybe it's slow enough that these overcosted kicker spells are just extra, like just free real estate. Um, which is
Mhm.
actually an excellent segue into the next card. So let's go ahead and let's hop over
Mhm.
to Pixie Illusionist, one of the weirdest spells I think in this set. Um, it's a 1/1 fairy wizard for 1. It has flying. That means we have to pay attention to it in Pauper, right? Like you can't see that creature typing with that mana cost and ignore it ever. Um,
Correct.
but then you read the rest of the text box, And this card has kicker for 3 and a green. That's a 4 mana kicker. And if it was kicked, it enters with 2/1/1 counters on it. So it comes into play as a 3/3 flyer, which as a 5 mana spell is on rate. But one, this having a green kicker for counter seems really weird to me. And two, then you read the tap ability at the bottom and it gets even stranger. It taps to Spreading Seas a land for a turn, but to target land type. So its target land you control becomes the basic land type of your choice until end of turn. Noticeably, you control is a weird context here. I understand why it has to say you control. This card would be very good. But it seems like the best case scenario I can think of for this deck is it fairies that just somehow need additional fairy seers and you're willing to sacrifice the scry effect to get another 1/1 flyer in your deck. And you can sometimes turn your islands into mountains so that you can cast lightning bolts and screds if your mana base is sucking it up for you. I suppose you could also see this in the blue-black fairy list if you're a little more on the aggro-oriented side, so you don't want to play the tapped lands. And you can just instant speed make yourself a swamp for some cast downs and some snuff out action, which could be kind of cute. I think, funny enough, this card has a better chance of being in Constructed Pauper right now because not only is Mono Black Ponza good, but Rug Ponza is making a comeback too because of the initiative added on MTGO. So I think if this card's ever going to see play in Constructed, it's going to be really soon. That being said, I'm almost never going to play this card in Limited. It's definitely not making the cube. But because it's a 1/1 flying fairy wizard, for one, I think that this card almost certainly has a chance to be played in Constructed, which is such a ridiculous evaluation.
Yeah, and it's like everything beyond flying is just, well, even the part before it, kicker, is just not relevant. You know, the 1 mana, 1/1 flyer, fairy, wizard even, very helpful with that typing.
Yep.
Because there's other things that you can tap for have a land become the basic land of choice of your turn, or of your choice until the end of turn, and they don't see play. And I mean, granted, there's a few Kavu at 3 that let you target your opponent's stuff,
Right.
but like I don't think that that's too good. It's just yeah, it's just gonna be for like a gotcha very, very rarely.
Yep.
On turns you didn't attack with it and didn't ninja.
Exactly. Yeah, I mean, it's a 1/1 fairy for one. You have to pay attention to those, but I'm just not excited about this card, and if this sees play in Constructed Pauper, it's not because I want it to be.
Yeah, it's just an extra 1/1 flyer that you can swing in with on turn 2.
Yep.
So you can pay a blue and draw a card
Extra
off your other
ninjas,
ninjas.
Yep. All right, moving on to Shore Up. Now, this, on the other hand, is a card that I fully expect to see in competitive, and I'm just fine with that. It's a 1 mana blue instant. Costs just a single blue. Target creature you control gets 1/1 hexproof till end of turn and untap it. And I think the untap is just kind of a trap here. I don't think you ever want to be gotching on the defensive with this card, although in fringe cases, I suppose that's not terrible. This almost certainly is just blue vines, right? Like,
yeah, this is Ranger's Guile.
Yeah. And
yeah,
I think it probably has a chance at being played right now, especially in mono red blitz is kind of where you want to be for spells like this recently, but we still have mono white heroic, which does see some fringe play, and we've seen some of the inside out decks kind of coming back a little bit. Excuse me, with the gates and nomads and stuff. So I wouldn't be shocked to see this card in competitive at all. I think this card's going to be in a lot of sideboards, probably some main boards, and I think that if another Serpentine Curve deck comes out of the woodwork, or an Is It Blitz that's making use of the new Is It Charm downshift next to that Monastery Swift Spear in like a ninja package. This could absolutely be in that deck. This card's good.
Mhm. Yeah, and it's also very possible that the untap could be the relevant part of this. So for like walls might not hate having an extra untap source. Granted,
Sure,
you're not
it's
gonna
an
find
excellent
it with
point.
your tutors, but yeah, you're either playing this for the 1/1 and hexproof, or you're playing it for the untap. And any deck that wants either of those effects is happy to have this.
Yeah. All right. Next, but certainly not least, is probably the best card in this color for this whole format. It's just kidding. That's next. It's Soaring Drake, which is a 3-mana 2/3 flying Drake. No text box. 2 and a colorless. This is slightly better rate than we have seen in the past. There's been a lot of like Welkin Tarns and 2/2 flyers for 3. Having that 3 body is a relevant upgrade in power creep. I don't expect this to see any play outside of limited, but in limited, this card is above rate in a vacuum and will be quite good.
Yeah, I mean, Wind Drake is just not good enough
Exactly.
anymore, and I don't think an extra bump on its toughness is good enough.
I think it'll
Like,
probably be
until,
quite good in limited, but nowhere else.
yeah, I'm really only gonna be excited if we see like a giant spider at 2 that flies, or at 3 that flies, you know?
Yeah, that's fair.
It's there's not much else on this card, you know?
Yeah. No, I mean it's a black
Dice to
card. We
Bolt,
can
clearly
we
bad.
can move on. It's got cool art though. I love the Drake reimagining for this.
Mhm.
All right.
Yeah, I'm really sad that Horizon Drake's not playable.
Yeah,
It's got that
me
card.
too. All right, now we get to what I think is the best card in blue in the whole format. Oh, nope, just kidding. We're still one short. This is next up is Talis Lookout, which is an interesting card that I wanted to talk about. It's just not the card I thought we were going to get to. Alphabet order is confusing, I guess. This card is a human pirate for 4 mana, 2 and 2 blue, with flying. Weird already. When it dies, you look at the top 2 cards of your library, put 1 into your hand and the other in your graveyard, and it's a 3/2. Thoughts on this card? What do you think?
I like it. Um, Definitely more so in sealed than in constructed. This thing comes down on, on 4. It's wonderful on attack. It's great on blocking as well. It already does its job as soon as it enters. Um, it puts cards in relevant zones, both of them. Yeah, I'm a fan.
Well, so notably, it doesn't do its thing when it enters. It's on dies.
It doesn't. Oh, dies. Oh, shoot. That's why it's good block. My
Yeah.
apologies. Yes.
But I agree, it puts things in relevant zones. I like that this replaces itself with a little more than just draw a card. I like that this has flying. I don't like the double blue pips. I don't think that's quite necessary on this type of creature. But this is just strange typing for a 3/2 flyer, 4 mana 3/2 flyer, you did not expect human pirate to be that creature typing. But I like that this replaces itself with a card choice. I think that's great. I think this will be quite good in sealed, quite good in limited in general. I think this will be a reasonable draft pick a lot of the time. Notably, I don't like that this trades down in mana value for the Drake we just looked at, which is 1 cheaper. Is gonna block this card a lot and be very happy about it. I wish this was a 3/3. I really do, but alas, I'm not mad at this card. I think it's going to be quite good and limited. I don't think it's going to be anywhere else though. Moving on to Tidepool Turtle. Now there's a long line of tap activated turtles and just some dirtle turtles, as they're called in the past. Looking at you, Spiny Sea Star. Tidepool Turtle is a 4 mana turtle, 3 and a blue. It is a 2/5, which is a stat line I'm really a fan of in limited. And then if that wasn't good enough in the slow, more controller value oriented late game decks for limited, This has a 3 mana, no tap, scry 1 ability, which seems bonkers in limited for me. This card seems like a house.
Mm. Yeah, this seems like the closest we're gonna get in common towards was it an Azure Mage?
Yeah. Yeah, it was Azure
Yeah,
Mage.
'cause
That card was great.
hmm yeah. That was the bomb back
It
then.
was, yeah.
But yeah, no, just going for the card you want. Um, it's yeah, it's good. I what kills this in Pauper, like I can't
A
even.
full domain X mana Tribal Flames.
Oh, Tribal Flames. Yeah,
Or the
that's
new
fair.
one if you ever attack with it.
Oh yeah,
This
but
is
you
with
only need
Justice.
4 land types that way.
Right, just block
Yeah.
it. um, yeah, I'm a big fan of this card. I think this card is going to be quite good in limited. I think it's going to be quite good in draft. 3 mana to scry unlimitedly is a hell of a mana sink.
Mm,
Yeah, I'm in love with this card. I think this card's great.
yeah, and I like this in the cube as well
I
because
think this
again,
certainly has a
5.
spot in the cube. There's no way this doesn't
Yeah.
make the cube. This card's
hmm
great.
Yeah, there's a few things that get through it, but this is something again helps blue
Yeah.
stabilize and
Yeah.
just gives them a minute to
What do you
breathe.
think about this card replacing something like Halimar Wave Watch in the cube?
Oh,
Because that's kind of immediately where my mind goes for this card. It's a defensively bodied, mid-rangey mana sink.
I huh. I don't know about that. Halimar Wave Watch comes in on 2 and you level it up once and it's an
Oh, I
06.
I like that. Don't get me wrong, but that's still at
So
3 mana, and you've sunk or
mhm,
turn 3, and you've sunk 4 mana into it. Equivalently,
yeah, so
you
you
can
turn up
sink
turn
4
2 and
mana
turn
into
3.
this on turn 4 and get a 2/5 instead of a 0/6. They're both
hmm
mana sinks. That's just the comparison I immediately jump to. I'm obviously not dead set on that substitution. I think there's discussion to be had there. But just in my mind, when I compare this to a card in the cube, that's the one that jumps out at me. It's a defensively bodied, mid-rangey
hmm
blue defense blocker that has a mana sink ability, and that's kind of where I jump to as Wave Watch,
Yeah, no, I agree. There's obvious comparisons between the two, and this has power already on
which
it
I
on the
really
creature.
like.
Yeah. So this is I like it. I would like it in addition to Wave Watch. I
Perhaps.
don't know
Yeah,
what
yeah.
card gets cut,
This
but
honestly feels
those are the
like
only
blue
two I'm
Disown
aware of.
Ancestor to me. Is that weird?
No, no, that's about right. Or the Menace Slug.
Yeah, slug.
Mm,
All right. Great card. Love turtles. Let's go next. Is a timely interference. I missed this card when I looked at the set the first time, so this is a first read for me. 1 blue instant with kicker 1 colorless 1 red. Target creature gets -1/-0 until end of turn. If the spell is kicked, that creature blocks this turn if able. Draw a card. That's a lot of words, and and it's just a 1 mana draw spell that impacts the board slightly, and it has a provoke effect with kicker. This might be the first spell I've seen with kicker I didn't think was overcosted. I
mhm.
quite like this spell. I think this is good. Is that weird?
No, this is very close to that red instant from Strixhaven, where you learn instead of draw a
Yeah.
card.
Uh huh.
But target creature must block, and you can give it reach if you want.
Yep.
Mm.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I like this a
I
lot.
like
Like,
this card quite a bit, actually. I'm
mhm,
surprised. I missed this when I looked at the set the first time, and wow, this card is quite good, I think. I'm going to be happy
mhm.
about playing this a lot of the time.
Yeah, I don't know when um you'd want to do the full kick. Like your opponent would have to have like 1 or 2 creatures out. You'd want to be aiming specifically for one small creature. Probably you're going to be trading off the one you swing with because you are in blue or
I
red.
think this is almost
Uh,
certainly just going to be a blue
mhm,
combat trick most of the time. You're just going to swing in, wait for them to assign blockers, and then mess with power and toughness. But on the off chance they play something like, the new, if there's an equivalent card to like a Zur Mage or like a Guild Mage or just something with an activated ability that you've really got to get off the board. Um,
mhm.
Having the ability on a blue spell to just be like, your dude has to block and then kill it, regardless of whether or not you trade your dude for it, right? Um, Yeah, this card seems great. I'm a fan.
Yeah, I think that I'm always casting this for blue. If it's in a blue-red deck, I
I might
mean, I'm
kick it
probably gonna use the
sometimes.
red for removal spell.
Yep.
But yeah, kicking it is not out of the question. I agree though. Waiting for them to choose blocks or waiting for them to assign attacks, and then you block, and
Yep.
then you can mess with the combat math. That's where the power of this card is.
Yeah, as
It's
a one
not the
mana
kick.
spell, I agree. I think that having the
Hmm.
option of like sometimes it's also removal is good, but most of the time it's a combat trick that replaces itself, and I'm into that.
Hmm.
That's good.
Yep. Yep. It's a good card.
All right.
Um, I it'd be interesting to find a spot in cube, but
I look at Hypothesizzle a lot, and every time I do, I ask myself what in blue red can replace that. I don't know if that's this card, but I think it's in the conversation.
mm,
Um, Especially because blue red is more of like a spells matter deck now, so having a cheap cantrippy spell to go next to like Preordain and Opt and those other ones that can just trigger your spell casting a lot on like Thunderous Drake. Um, yeah, I'm into talking about this. I think it can make the cube. Um, yeah, good card.
mhm.
Next one. Oh, another good card. Talarian Geyser. I hate that this is a sorcery, but we get what we get. 3 mana sorcery, 2 colorless, and a blue with kicker, 1 white, just a single white. I love that. Return target creature to its owner's hand. Draw a card. If this spell was kicked, you gain 3 life. This is just straight up a 3 mana bounce spell that says draw a card on it, and I love it already. I think 1 kicker for 3 life is perfectly fine on rate to a card that already replaces itself. I'm on board. I think this card's good.
Yeah, you're never gonna go for the helix part of this.
But when you
Yeah,
need
drawing a
to,
card is
if
great.
you can, it's
Hmm.
just gravy. You know what I mean? Like, why not?
Hmm. Yeah, that's fair. This, I mean, this card has places that it's going to be that are not going to have access to white mana,
Absolutely. This is
and you're still very
this
happy
is
with this.
certainly going to be in tons of blue and blue X decks that have nothing to do with white, and it's still fine.
Hmm. Yeah, this is like
Good even.
it's like Royal Helix.
Yes.
Um, it does notably only hit creatures, so like you're not happy about your opponent playing Oblivion Ring or Journey to Nowhere, but I mean they can't really kill you with those things. So
Yeah, I love this replaces itself. Again, I don't like the sorcery tagline. I think that's the one thing weighing this card down. Um, but man, this card's good.
mm,
All right, now we finally get to what I consider the best blue card in this set, and maybe one of the best blue cards in this format. As of the moment this card is legal, Talarian Terror. This is the blue version of the spell reduction cycle we have going, and this is arguably the best one of the bunch. Maybe the best card out of the set for Pauper. It is a 7 mana, sorry, 5/5 Serpent. Spell costs 1 less to cast for each instant or sorcery in your graveyard, and if that wasn't enough, because Gurmag Angler is good, it has Ward 2. Uh, I cannot fathom a deck that plays blue and any amount of cantrips that doesn't immediately windmill slam this card into their 75. This card's great.
yeah, I would say a 60 even. I don't know that you if you're playing this in your sideboard at all.
Oh
You're
no, no,
playing
you're
this in a
putting this
main.
in your main board.
Yeah.
It's just it whatever you're
Mhm.
cutting for it may move to your 15. So I just address it in the 75.
It's fair. Um, this is better than Gurmag on every cast after the first. So,
Yeah.
uh, and even on the first cast, it's gonna. I mean, if you're paying 3 mana for this, you're still happy. Because if there's gonna be things that aren't instants or sorceries in your graveyard,
Mm-hmm.
but I mean, Ward 2, so
Ward
nice.
2's great.
Making your opponent tap out
Yeah.
on their turn to answer it, so you can then slam another one or do something else. It's just, yeah, it's the pièce de
I think this
résistance.
card is going to be a windmill slam in Affinity. I think this actually opens the door to what I think is like a really, really streamlined blue black affinity. Maybe you still keep the red because Galv Blast is just too good, but I think this next to like Gear Seeker Serpent, um, you can almost certainly cut all of your Gurmag Anglers and just use your Blood Fountains for recursion and not have to worry about selection when you have to windmill, like when you have to cheaply cast your Gurmag Anglers. Um, this card's great. I think it's almost certainly going to replace Gurmag Angler and Affinity. This will see play in pretty much every deck that runs fairies, because they need cheap finishers, and this is definitely one of those cards. This card will see play in pretty much everything that currently runs Gurmag Angler that subsequently plays blue.
Yeah.
This card's phenomenal. This is easily the best
On-
card of the set for me.
On top of being tied for one of the best bodies.
Yeah. All right. Nice, easy. This is the best card in the set. Next question.
Yeah, easy 10 out of 10.
Yeah. Next, we have what I think is a trap card. I think a lot of people are going to first time read this card, think it's incredible, and then they're going to reread this card and go, oh. 3 mana Merfolk Rogue. It's a 3/2 for 2 and a blue with Domain. When it enters the battlefield, look at the top X cards of your library, where X is the number of basic land types among you control. You may put one of those cards not in your hand, but on top of your library. Put the rest into your bottom of your library in a random order. Again, with that random order tagline, we've talked about that from Militia Bugler. Not a fan, but this is vodace Scavenger. What do you think?
I think that this card is trying to put your setup in your payoff, but it like you don't want this. You want to find your domain card. You want to play this to find the Nylea's Presence or to find the dual land you're not looking or that you don't have. But you can't do that effectively without already having one of those. Yeah. And so like this card is not as good as I want it to be.
Yeah, the first time I looked at this card, I went, holy shit, Seagate Oracle is never getting played again. And then I read it again and I went, oh, just kidding. This card's never seeing play because Seagate Oracle exists. If this said put it in your hand, it would be really good. You know?
Yeah.
Top of your library is just not where you want your card to go. And can we just please take a moment, Wizards, stop putting shit random order at the bottom of our library. It's just more maintenance. There is no functional need for that on this type of effect. There just isn't.
Yeah, I want to say it's for like Arena and online considerations, but Militia Bugler existed before Arena, so.
And what would that have to, why would that matter in Arena?
It is one less click for assigning the order, but in play, you're sacrificing in play ease. For just
if you're sacrificing your over the table
online
play to accommodate for online play, you're probably making a mistake. I'm with you there. All right, well, that's a nice easy one. And over to the last card of the set in blue, which is another good card, honestly. Volshay Tide Turner, which is a 1/3 for 2 Merfolk Wizard. It says tap, add a blue mana, spend this mana only to cast instant or sorcery or a kicked spell. Now, we've seen several instances of this type of card in recent set. We've got the one from Dominaria, which is another Merfolk Wizard, but it taps for a colorless to spend for instant or sorcery spell. We have the Unblinking Observer from Innistrad Midnight Hunt, which does add a blue mana. Spend it only to cast Disturb or an instant or sorcery spell. That was notably a 2/1 for 2, which I think made it slightly better than a 1/3. And we also had Carfell Harbinger, which was from Kaldheim, which was word for word a 1/3 for 2. It was a zombie wizard instead of Merfolk Wizard. It added a blue spend this mana only to foretell a card or cast an instant or sorcery. We've seen so many variations of this ability. I like this one. I mean, all of them have seen play in limited and been good in limited. I think this card is no different. But I like that this card adds colored mana, unlike the Vidalian Arcanist, I think was the one from Dominaria that makes colorless. I'm not sure how relevant the kicked tagline is. I'll be honest. 99% of the instant or sorcery spells, or of the kicked spells in general that I'm going to be casting are already just instants or sorceries. Especially in this set. I know there are some kicked creatures, so it's slightly more relevant, but I'm not casting very many of them, I'll be honest. Most of the spells that I'm going to be casting with this mana are instants or sorceries, and I'm pretty happy about it, to be honest.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the only kicked tagline that this could make sense for would be really the fairy, I think. There might be a creature that's a kicker of blue. Oh yeah, there's one creature. It's a merfolk in green. So that could help.
Mm-hmm.
And it works actually because that merfolk is a bear. So you play this and you play that on the next turn, and you get to benefit from the kick.
Sure.
I think that this is just a card that Wizards has fallen on in terms of design, to where you are able to push the set mechanic easily in blue. Just saying, hey, look, we're supporting this.
Yeah.
But it's I think the best of this is the one that adds colorless from it was the last time we went to Innistrad, I think, where it milled a card as well. And that's just because it had some actual tangible effect.
So that wasn't the last time we went to Innistrad, it was the one before that. The last time we went to Innistrad, we got the Unblinking Observer, which was the Disturb spell version. And it was a 2/1 for 2. But I do remember the one that milled a card. It was quite good in that format, and it probably was the best of them. I agree.
But yeah, like until we get one that's better than that, I'm not going to be holding my breath because that card doesn't see play because it's not good enough.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean it's a fine card, limited. You'd be happy to play it. It's going to block effectively, but it's not going anywhere else.
All right, well, that wraps up blue for the set, so we'll cut it there. All right, that just about wraps up the bunch of cards for this color. Please like, comment, subscribe. You know the deal. It's a brand new YouTube channel. Any help really does matter. Share this video with your friends. And by all means, let me know if you think we misevaluated something. Sleeper Bomb, what's your favorite card out of this color? So let us know down in the comments below. As usual, goodbye forever. Unless I see you tomorrow.